You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. Hey, Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Hey man, I am great. We had a fun off-air chat, so I'm excited to chat with you about this important topic today, depression, anxiety, mental health in general, but we're going to specifically focus on depression, anxiety. As I was telling you, the Center for Disease Control, they changed their ranking over the past couple of years. Now, depression is the number one leading cause of disability. It's actually grown over heart disease. It used to be heart disease was number one. Now depression is number one leading cause of disability. So that's pretty alarming. I predicted this about 4 or 5 years ago. I could just see the trend of society, and now it's happened, and it's official.
Totally. Depression is really important because a lot of the medications that are out there, let me just pull out my little Bluetooth headset here. All the medications that are out there typically only treat the symptoms. So you kind of have medication from like the 80s called tricyclics, right? And these tended to work, but they had a little less side effects than a lot of the current days SSRIs or SSNRIs, right? These are medications that work on blocking the reuptake of serotonin or norepinephrine or dopamine. And essentially, it's allowing more neurotransmitters to sit in between the pre and the postsynaptic neuron. So neuron, pre, post, right? Before, after, and then you have all this in-between area called the synaptic cleft, or essentially that's where a lot of the neurotransmitters would hang out. The longer those guys hang out in that area, typically what happens is you're going to have a recycling of those neurotransmitters at a higher level. So the longer those neurotransmitters sit in that synaptic cleft there, the faster they get broken down. So that's why over time a lot of antidepressant medications have to go up because of the fact that those chemicals are being broken down at a much faster rate. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, the problem is, too, these medications, they're not addressing the root cause. Now, I know in some cases they could be life-saving therapies because they pull people out of a super deep depression where maybe they were suicidal. But as time and time goes on, the percentage used to be 80% of serotonin was coming from the gut, and then it jumped up to 85 or 90%. And then now I keep seeing new literature coming out that the percentage is almost close to 100% now of serotonin from the gut. So we really have to address any gut infections. We have to test for those. We have to find them. We have to fix them. If we really want to get to the root cause, the brain, of course, is a factor. But, man, the gut seems like the biggest factor to me.
Oh, it's a major factor. And again, one of the listeners here in the live chat brought up a lot of the shootings that have been happening recently. And yeah, these medications have a black label warning, black box warning on them for suicidal tendencies, violent acts, these kinds of things. So it can really alter someone's physiology and biochemistry where it may predispose them to these kind of violent acts. So again, I look at these type of medications really only being used in a life or death kind of, hey, we're going to get this person stabilized so they don't do something that they're going to regret. But then we have to work on getting them off these medications and get to the root cause. And that really has to be the end goal. We need to have a transitional goal in mind so we can get to the root cause, whether we start adding in specific amino acids, amino acid therapy. A lot of these neurotransmitters, they come from amino acids. So there's kind of just like the replacement model of, hey, let's add more amino acids in to build up serotonin and dopamine in the brain so you feel better. There's that component, right? And that may be really important, especially if you have a lot of malabsorption, like you're not breaking down proteins and fats, you have low stomach acid or enzymes. It may also be important if like you're a vegetarian or vegan and you're not getting enough of these high quality proteins in animal source, which tend to be the most nutrient dense. So there's a lot of different things that may drive that from an amino acid perspective. And you talk about 90+% in the gut. The question is, can that serotonin cross the blood-brain barrier? I'm not sure we know if it can. From what I understand, it can't. But a lot of the precursor amino acids like tryptophan and or 5-HTP can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Ah, got it. Okay. So you brought up the vegetarian vegan point. This is huge. You and I both work with so many vegetarians and vegans, and sometimes they're just not willing to add in things to the diet. So whether it's like egg or even fish, they just don't want to add it in. And I've seen the most depression and anxiety problems from vegetarian and vegans. So I wouldn't even say it's like just a coincidence anymore. I mean, I've seen it so often that it's got to be causation in this aspect.
Well, you're going to always get higher quality amino acids, proteins from animal products, just how it is. You're not going to get a whole bunch of anti-nutrients with them, right? The way animals defend themselves are with teeth and with claws. The way plants defend themselves are with anti-nutrients, compounds that make it harder to break down their constituents, the lectins, phytates, mineral blockers, anti-nutrients. They make it hard to break down some of these plants. That's how plants kind of survive, right? Animals survive through claws and being able to run, fight, and flee. But once you have an animal, right, once you've already killed it and you get that meat on the table, it's not going to possess the same amount of anti-nutrients. And it tends to also have just pure protein and fat, where a lot of the plant-based proteins are going to have a whole bunch of carbohydrate along with it, unless you're doing like a pea protein powder or rice protein powder where the starch component has already been removed from the proteins.
Yep. Well said. Let's talk about some of the gut infections, how this could relate into depression, anxiety symptoms. We could talk about H. pylori. We had a question about that too, so we'll go ahead and address it. How can H. pylori cause depression? We know that it's going to reduce stomach acid. If it's reducing stomach acid, even if you are eating those good quality organic pastured animal proteins, you're not going to digest those. So you're going to have undigested food particles, creating the leaky gut situation. That can stress out the liver. We know there's a link between mood issues and the liver. Sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes depression, sometimes anger, irritability, things like that. And then you've got the aspect of the aminos. So like Justin already hit on, if you're not digesting these proteins, that first domino could be affected, all because of your low HCl production due to the H. pylori. Then all of a sudden you have no amino acids. Now you've got no raw materials to manufacture neurotransmitters. So this is huge.
100%. So there's a couple different components, right? Dan writes, can H. pylori cause depression? Yeah. Well, number one, it's going to do it by a couple different ways. Number one, it's going to lower stomach acid and enzyme levels, which make it harder to break down proteins and healthy fats, which, fats tend to be a really important building block for the brain. And then the proteins tend to be the building blocks for the neurotransmitters. So if we have decrease in the raw material of the brain, right, and we have decrease in the neurotransmitter raw material, then we're going to have issues with optimal mood health for sure. Number two is a lot of the bacterial components of H. pylori have what are called lipopolysaccharides or endotoxins, which can cause depression by itself. It does it through going to the brain and creating inflammation in the brain. It passes through the gut junctions, creates leaky gut, goes to the brain and creates inflammation and can create mood issues in the brain. It also can just create leaky gut, and which can increase the immune system. And when the immune system is kind of overreactive, it can suck up a lot of energy. And when your energy is lower, you tend to have more likelihood of being depressed and being anxious. Typically, lower energy and depression tend to come hand in hand.
Yep. I had H. pylori. I had multiple parasites. So we had a question from Don. He was asking what parasites are the most destructive. and what parasites would cause the most amount of depression. I don't know if we could rank it like that. 1, 2, 3. Number 1 is going to cause the most depression. But I know when I had Giardia and I had Cryptosporidium, I had weight loss, I had H. pylori, I had fungus, I had Candida, I had SIBO, Pseudomonas, I had bacterial infections. I was just very, very, not right in the head. My sleep was off, which then affected my energy, which then affected my mood. So it's hard to say, like, was it chicken or egg? These parasites caused depression, or was it the fact that my sleep was disrupted, therefore I wasn't actually waking up rested, then that made me tired and depressed. Justin, do you have any comments to add about that? Like parasites, could you rank them at all, saying Crypto or Giardia is worse than, say, Dentamoeba or Blasto in terms of the amount of depression it creates?
Well, I would definitely say your parasites that are tending to cause more problems because they tend to be a little bit more endemic. They tend to cause more inflammation. But regarding, which ones, it's hard to say. I've seen people have other parasitic infections that cause more problems than what they typically say on paper. Like some people have Amoeba fragilis, but that's typically one that may not cause a lot of symptoms. So the question is, well, why did it cause a lot of symptoms for you and not the other person? So again, things like ehisto and crypto tend to cause more problems, but sometimes you may have a less virulent type of parasite infection and it may cause just as many issues for you. So the question is, if you have an infection and you have symptoms, especially if you have an infection and you have digestive symptoms, we got to work on getting the digestion better and then fixing the infections next.
Yep, well said. So we had a question about, is it possible for your partner to give you a parasite? Or if it enters your body, will your system fight it off? The literature is not clear on parasitic infections. Now, Justin can tell you about like some of the correlations we've seen where partners have infections. We know 100% H. pylori is passed all the time. 90% of the time I have someone that shows up with H. pylori, the spouse eventually has to get involved. We have to get them tested, and we end up having to create a protocol for them too. Because I've had people where we create a protocol, the H. pylori is gone on the retest of the stool, and then the symptoms come back a few months later. We do another stool test. Then all of a sudden the H. pylori is back again. We're like, well, what the hell happened? Typically it's the partner. So then we have to get the spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend tested. They usually are the source. And then all of a sudden we create a protocol for both of them. And then all of a sudden they get better. Now parasites though, I don't know, Justin. What's your thoughts on passing all the parasites, kind of back and forth between each other? What have you seen?
Yeah, I think that's 100% probable. We see it a lot with our chronically ill patients that tend to get reinfected over and over. That's a vector that we always look at to make sure we get the partner or the spouse addressed, because you can definitely pass it back and forth. And I'm more worried about the inflammation. I'm more worried about the leaky gut. I'm more worried about the LPS and the endotoxins making the way to the brain and creating inflammation and symptoms there. I'm also worried about just the maldigestion, not breaking things down well, not having enough stomach acid, enzymes, bile salts. So just affecting the digestion, number one, affecting the leaky gut, number two, and then eventually making its way to the brain. Leaky gut will also cause leaky brain, and that could also create more symptoms as well.
Yep, well said. I mean, the leaky brain thing, most people don't talk about it. I think we've hit on that topic on many episodes, but I don't think we've done a full one. So maybe we should add that to the list, a whole leaky brain episode. But people, you do want to realize if you have leaky gut, and this could just be caused from non-celiac gluten sensitivity. If you're eating gluten, we know that's creating the leaky gut situation. That's creating leaky brain. If you take a GABA supplement and you get relaxed from it, you have a leaky brain. And that's not good, because then you're sitting in traffic, you're breathing in diesel fumes and other pollutants. That stuff is having direct access through that blood-brain barrier, which normally would protect you. So that the integrity of that barrier is super important. There's another question here about depression. Could it be caused because of a lack of dopamine? Is supplementing with tyrosine sufficient enough to help depressive moods? Yes and no. The thing with the amino acids is it's like a spider web. So if you do start modifying serotonin, things can get messed up with dopamine. If you just start pounding L-tyrosine, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fix your problem either. So really you want to get an organic acids test first and figure out what's going on, because we can measure dopamine. A lot of people think they have low dopamine, but it's actually too low serotonin. Or some people have low serotonin and they think that it's that, but it's actually not. It's actually low dopamine instead. So vice versa. I hope that made sense. But across the board, you could be low in GABA. You could be low in your catecholamines. You could be low with your norepinephrine, epinephrine. You could be low with cortisol. So even cortisol could be a component of depression, because if you've got adrenal problems, that cortisol rhythm is too low, your batteries aren't charged, or you've got too high cortisol, or your cortisol's all over the place, fluctuating high and low, which could all be due to these infections. That's the perfect recipe for depression. So tyrosine may or may not be the solution for you.
Totally. And I have one article here. It talks about dietary proteins having a substantial effect on the composition of gut bacteria. And they talked about, for instance, suggesting the intake of dairy and meat proteins at recommended level may be beneficial to maintain balanced composition of gut bacteria compared with soy protein. Now, again, some of these studies are rat-based, so not going to be a direct correlation, but having a healthy gut bacteria level may decrease some of that gram-negative bacteria, which is some of the not-so-nice bacteria that tend to cause more of the LPS, right? The lipopolysaccharide and endotoxin. So if we can get the gut bacteria more into balance, that may decrease the LPS, help with healthier gut integrity, and help with less LPS getting to the brain, which creates some mood issues that way too.
Yep. So do you want to go into some of the solutions now? I mean, we've hit on neurotransmitters a bit. We hit on infections, so finding and fixing those. What about some of the free stuff, like just exercise alone, just increasing that BDNF, getting the movement, getting the blood going? I mean, that's huge.
Totally.
For me. Exercise has changed my life.
Yeah, I would say that the BDNF, the brain-derived neurotropic factor, really helps with mood, helps with healthy myelination, improvement of brain building. Staying away from grains is really important, because that can decrease blood flow up. The garden hose is called the carotid artery to the brain. If we decrease blood flow, we're going to, one, not be able to clear out inflammation as well. We're also not going to be able to bring oxygen and nutrition to help the brain too. So gluten's a big one. I would say, of course, your amino acids, serotonin, 5-HTP, L-tyrosine, of course, B6 is really important. And if we've got bacterial imbalances, that will affect B6. Also, healthy probiotics can help with gut inflammation. Remember, inflammation in the gut will create inflammation in the brain. So healthy levels of lactobacillus, bifidobacter, probiotics will help cool down inflammation in the gut, which may help decrease some of that glial site activation in the brain, which again is an inflammatory cell in the brain. It's a white blood cell that it's in the brain called the glial cells. And when those get activated, it can create brain fog, and it can also create mood issues too.
Oh, I want to go back to the diet piece. So there is a piece of literature out there, a study of 9,700 vegetarians, including some vegans. They were twice as likely to suffer from depression as meat eaters, even after adjusting for variables such as job status, family history, and number of children. And then it goes on to talk about the lower intake of omega-3 fats, B12, and folate, which all can affect depression risk. So on that note of the omega-3s, yeah, a DHA fish oil supplement could be helpful, but also you've got pastured meats. Grass-fed beef alone contains so much more omega-3s than your standard typical low-quality meat. So that is a really, really good piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting 3 to 4 servings, 4 ounces of healthy fish per week is going to be great. Wild Alaskan sockeye, skipjack tuna, kind of high selenium to low mercury type of fish. You can just Google that, high selenium to low mercury fish. Typically, the higher ones are going to be like the shark, pilot whale, those things. Swordfish are going to be much higher in mercury to selenium. Skipjack's going to be great. Wild Alaskan sockeye is going to be great. Cod, haddock, sole. These are all going to be higher selenium, lower mercury. That's great. And if you want to be on top of it more, you can do 2 to 4 grams of fish oil per day is excellent. That'll have EPA and DHA in it. I know the ones like my Omega Supreme has lipase in it. It's also a triglyceride form, so it's better absorbed, number 1, less oxidation, number 2, and then the extra lipase will help you break it down in case there's some fatty acid or digestive compromise things going on there too.
Yeah, well said. If you're buying fish oil supplements, people, if it smells fishy, throw that stuff out. It's garbage. It's ethyl ester form. If you go to Target, Walgreens, any of these big box stores and you're buying fish oil, it's crap. Do not waste your money. Buy a professional grade supplement. Check out Justin's site, Justin Health. I've also got one, Evan Brand. Just look us up, find our stores, and we've got good fish oils, because if you're not doing professional grade, you're wasting your money. And there's actually literature now that if it is an oxidized, rancid fish oil, you're actually creating more inflammation. When the whole goal is to suppress inflammation and help depression, you're making it worse if you're doing a low quality like a Kirkland's or a Costco or a Sam's Club or these big box fish oils, Vitamin Shoppe, GNC, all those guys. That's all consumer grade. It's all ethyl ester. That's not good. You want triglyceride.
Exactly. And then Teresa mentions a low T3. So you have low thyroid levels, poor T4 to T3 conversion, right? Our lower thyroid, our active thyroid hormone T3 or triiodothyronine. That's important. Low thyroid can create mood issues. It can create depression. So we'd want to get to the root cause of why the thyroid is low. It could be just a combination of an autoimmune issue driven by gluten and other infections. It could be a nutrient conversion issue like selenium, vitamin A, copper, zinc, magnesium. It also could be, a gut bacteria issue. It could also be a stress issue like cortisol, right? So adrenal function has major effects on mood too. If the adrenals are hyper or hypo functioning, there could be some mood issues there. It could be fatigue, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be a combination of all three. Typically, anxiety and depression tend to come together. Some people can have them just individually, where they're either anxious or depressed, but some people, they tend to ebb and flow between the two.
Yep, well said. Yeah, so if you have thyroid problems, you've got to investigate the gut. You've got to investigate the adrenals. We talk about that, but we can never stop talking about it because your conventional doc is not bringing this up. When you go there and you show up slightly off with your TSH, they're not going to say, hey, maybe you have gut infections. It's causing conversion problems. Maybe you have adrenal problems that's messing up your conversion of active thyroid hormone. They're not going to say that, so we have to keep talking about it.
100%. And so outside of that, Tessa makes a note, hey, I don't have a thyroid. Then you really have to make sure you're on a full spectrum thyroid glandular and your T3 levels are at a therapeutic level, at least above 3.0 for T3 free. Ideally, I would make sure your T4 is above 1.0. That's a really good starting point. And then James mentions, what about Olympian Labs omega-3 fish oil? Not quite sure. It could be good. It may not. Typically, you get what you pay for, number one, and you want to make sure it's a triglyceride form, number two, and ideally, you want to make sure it's, this is like kind of a plus. Like I added in the lipase because I had worked with a lot of patients that have compromised guts, and I want to make sure they can break the fish oils down well. So that is another important component.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I can't find any information about whether that brand is a triglyceride form or not. So I'll keep digging and see if I could find it. But Justin and I, we're biased because we want people to get better. We have to actually follow up with our clients and speak with them. And if they're not getting better, that comes back on us. And so, we really want to use, and we always use the highest quality professional grade formulas, which tend to have tighter quality control and better certifications and better,
and also just better potency too. I remember I had some issues in the supply chain because some of the nutrients that we were getting were testing positive with some metals and some other not so nice compounds. So they sent it back to the manufacturer. So the nice thing is we're always trying to look and make sure there's no other contaminations, where let's say a lesser quality company may just say, look the other way and just let it go. So we're trying to put that quality control on it to ensure that there's not going to be any extra crap in it that could throw you off, so to speak.
Yeah, so I ended up on the Olympia Labs website here for this fish oil. It looks like, and this is just too cheap, right? So if you see something for $30 for 120, that it just sounds too cheap already. So to me, that tells me not going to be triglyceride form. I read the entire description. I don't see one word that includes the triglyceride form. So to me, it's ethyl ester. You could always contact them and say, hey, is it ethyl ester or triglyceride? But I'm going to bet $100 that it's going to be ethyl ester, which is inferior. You don't want to put that in your body.
Absolutely. But again, if you're doing 3 or 4 servings of 4 ounces of fish a week, you may not even need fish oil. Again, if you have extra inflammation or extra brain stuff going on, cognitive stuff, mood stuff, then I would recommend supplementing it just so you get extra bit on top of it, just to ensure that, what you're getting is getting to where it needs to go. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Evan, about depression or mood stuff regarding functional medicine here?
I think that's it. We hit the gut, we hit the adrenals, we hit the thyroid, aminos, liver function, digestive, anti-inflammation. I think we've hit it all, man.
Awesome. Well, hey, great talk today. We're doing some quicker podcasts so we can get more content out there to everyone. Hope you appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe. Click on the bell now. With YouTube, they've make it so you don't get a lot of the notifications of new videos and new content unless you are subscribed and you hit the bell. So click on that bell. Do it for Evan's channel as well and myself. That way you're going to get all this really good spoon-fed information for you guys to continue to improve your health and your friends and family health too.
Yep. If you need to reach out for a consult with Dr. J or myself, go to justinhealth.com, evanbrand.com. You can schedule a consult with us. We'll help you via phone and Skype. We work with people worldwide. We'll help you get tested, get to the root cause. So look us up, book a call if you need help. Don't try to piece it together if you're suffering. We're here for you. So have a great day. Take care.
Thanks, Evan. Take care.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.